Last night you probably reheated dinner. It is one of the most ordinary things a person does in their own kitchen, practical, sensible, nothing about it that seems remotely connected to the health of your arteries. But I want to tell you about a patient I saw not long ago, 67 years old, non-smoker, no family history of heart disease. He ate what genuinely appeared to be a reasonable diet, and yet his arteries looked like those of a man 20 years older, inflamed, stiff, with the kind of damage I typically associate with decades of very different choices. When we talked at length about his daily habits, the pattern that emerged had nothing to do with genetics, nothing to do with stress or weight. It was in how he reheated his dinner, every single night. If this channel has ever given you something worth knowing, hit that subscribe button right now, leave a like, and drop a comment below. Because that is what keeps this kind of conversation reaching the people who genuinely need it. I'm Dr. Mercer, and this channel exists to bring you the latest evidence-based research on senior health, simplified and designed for adults over 60. Stay with me through this entire video, because by the end you will understand exactly which 5 foods become genuinely problematic when reheated after 60, the biological mechanism behind each one, and what to do instead. Let me explain the context that makes this relevant specifically after 60, because the biology matters here. When you were in your 40s, your body had a remarkable capacity to neutralize damage quietly, free radicals, minor inflammation, low-level toxins. Your cells handled these without you needing to think about them. After 60, that capacity diminishes, your liver processes toxins more slowly, your immune response becomes less precise, your arterial walls become less elastic, your DNA repair mechanisms become less reliable. The margin for error narrows. What was manageable at 40 is not necessarily manageable at 65. This is where chronic inflammation becomes the central issue. Acute inflammation is healthy. It is how your body heals a cut, fights an infection, responds to damage. The problem is chronic low-grade inflammation, a persistent, slow-burning state where the inflammatory response never fully resolves. Chronic inflammation damages arterial walls over time, promotes plaque formation, raises cardiovascular risk, and creates an internal environment where abnormal cellular activity becomes more likely. A study published in the journal Circulation followed over 21,000 adults for 12 years and found that participants with elevated inflammatory markers had significantly higher rates of cardiovascular events and cancer-related mortality, independently of other known risk factors. The 5 foods we are about to discuss all share one mechanism in common. When reheated, they produce compounds that contribute to this chronic inflammatory state in ways the body over 60 handles less effectively than it once did. Let me walk you through each one. The first food is fried food, specifically anything cooked in vegetable oils including sunflower, corn, and soybean oil. The danger here is not in eating it the first time, the danger is in reheating it. When these oils are exposed to heat a second time, they undergo oxidative breakdown and release a class of toxic compounds called aldehydes, the same aldehydes found in cigarette smoke. Inside your body, these compounds attack the cells lining your blood vessels, triggering oxidative stress and initiating the inflammatory cascade that damages arterial walls. They are also free radicals, capable of damaging DNA. After 60, when DNA repair mechanisms are less efficient, some of that damage persists. The practical fix is straightforward. Leftover fried food should be reheated in a dry oven or air fryer at moderate temperature without any added oil. Better still, eat it cold. The goal is to prevent additional oxidation of oil that has already undergone one heating cycle. The second food is cooked leafy greens. This is the one that surprises most people because spinach, kale, and chard are among the most nutritious foods you can eat, and they are, when prepared correctly. Raw leafy greens contain nitrates that are largely harmless in their natural state, but when these vegetables are cooked and then stored, bacteria naturally present in the food begin converting those nitrates into nitrites. When you apply heat a second time, those nitrites react with amino acids in the food and form nitrosamines. The World Health Organization classifies nitrosamines as probable human carcinogens, but cancer risk is not the only concern. Nitrosamines also trigger vascular inflammation, damaging the endothelium, the inner lining of your blood vessels. When the endothelium is inflamed, your arteries lose their ability to regulate blood flow effectively. Blood pressure becomes harder to control, clotting risk increases. I had a patient I will call Marguerite, 63 years old, committed to eating well, prepared a large batch of sautéed spinach every Sunday and reheated it throughout the week for 5 days running. She had been experiencing progressively worse blood pressure control for 18 months despite medication adjustments. When we reviewed her kitchen habits in detail, the pattern became clear. We changed one thing: she began cooking leafy greens fresh, in the quantity needed for each meal, and eating any leftovers cold the following day rather than reheating them. Within 6 weeks her morning blood pressure readings had stabilized meaningfully. The fix is simple: cook only what you will eat at that meal. Any leftovers go cold into a salad or grain bowl. Never reheat cooked leafy greens. The third food is rice. It appears to be one of the safest and most neutral foods in existence. And yet reheated rice is responsible for more foodborne illness than almost any other common staple, and the mechanism has specific implications after 60, when rice is cooked. Most bacteria are eliminated, but Bacillus cereus, a bacterium naturally present in raw rice, produces spores that survive boiling in standard cooking temperatures. These spores become dormant during cooking and activate as the rice cools, multiplying and producing heat-resistant toxins that remain active even after thorough reheating. Your microwave kills the bacteria. It does not destroy the toxins they have already released. In the short term this causes gastrointestinal illness, but the concern after 60 goes beyond a single episode. Repeated low-level exposure to these toxins, 2 or 3 times per week over months and years, contributes to chronic intestinal inflammation, and the gut and the cardiovascular system are directly connected. Inflammatory signals generated in the gut travel through the bloodstream. Changes in gut bacteria affect cholesterol metabolism and blood pressure regulation. I have seen patients with unexplained cardiovascular inflammation, reasonable weight, non-smokers, and a seemingly healthy diet, who reported reheating rice daily, sometimes twice daily. After 60, the gut lining is more permeable than it was in earlier decades. Toxins and inflammatory signals reach the bloodstream more easily. The fix involves timing rather than abstinence. Cool cooked rice and refrigerate it within 1 hour of cooking. Consume it within 24 hours. Reheat it once and only once. Do not reheat a second time. Better still, cook smaller portions, so leftovers are minimal. The fourth food is chicken, lean, versatile, widely recommended as a healthy protein for older adults. The problem is not the chicken itself, it is the combination of chicken and microwave reheating. Microwaves heat food by exciting water molecules, but not evenly. They create cold zones, areas inside the food that receive little or no heat during reheating. The outside of your chicken can be steaming hot while internal sections remain at the temperature range where bacteria not only survive but actively multiply. Salmonella, Campylobacter, and Listeria are the main concerns in reheated poultry. Listeria is particularly relevant for adults over 60 because immune function declines with age, and this organism can cause serious systemic illness in immunologically compromised individuals. But the pattern of concern extends beyond acute illness. Repeated low-level bacterial exposure mobilizes the immune system repeatedly, releasing inflammatory cytokines into the bloodstream in small amounts each time. If this happens regularly over months, those cytokines circulate continuously, and chronic exposure to circulating inflammatory cytokines damages arterial walls, promotes plaque formation, and makes blood more prone to clotting. The fix is to move away from the microwave for reheating chicken. Use an oven at moderate temperature with the chicken covered in foil. If a microwave is the only option, cut the chicken into small uniform pieces. Use medium rather than maximum power, and allow it to rest covered for 2 full minutes after heating to allow the internal temperature to equalize. Alternatively, eat leftover chicken cold. The fifth food is potatoes. The concern here is unique because reheating potatoes triggers 2 entirely separate harmful processes simultaneously. The first is acrylamide formation. When starchy foods are cooked at high temperatures, a chemical reaction between sugars and an amino acid produces acrylamide. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies acrylamide as a probable human carcinogen. During the initial cooking it forms at a certain level. During reheating, especially at high heat, additional acrylamide forms on top of what is already there. Exposure compounds with each reheating cycle. After 60, the liver's capacity to detoxify acrylamide decreases, meaning the same exposure produces a proportionally greater internal burden. The second process concerns starch conversion. When cooked potatoes cool completely, a portion of their starch converts into resistant starch, a form that digests slowly, moderates blood sugar response, and feeds beneficial gut bacteria. When you reheat those potatoes at high heat, the resistant starch converts back into rapidly digestible regular starch, blood sugar rises sharply, the pancreas must respond with a surge of insulin. For adults over 60 with any degree of insulin resistance, which is extremely common and often undiagnosed, these sharp repeated blood sugar fluctuations cause oxidative stress in vessel walls and accelerate arterial stiffening. One reheated potato delivers both a compounded carcinogen exposure and a cardiovascular stress response simultaneously. The practical solution is to eat cooked potatoes cold whenever possible. Cold potato salad dressed with olive oil and fresh herbs keeps the resistant starch intact and stabilizes the blood sugar response. If they must be eaten warm, cook fresh potatoes using low heat for a short time with no added oil. Before I give you the specific action steps, I need to say something clearly. Nothing in this video is a reason to panic about foods you ate this week or last week. The harm described here is the result of repeated chronic patterns over months and years, not any single meal. If you have existing cardiovascular disease, inflammatory bowel disease, diabetes, or kidney disease, please discuss any significant dietary changes with your physician before implementing them, because the implications vary depending on your individual clinical situation, and if you are experiencing new or unexplained symptoms including unusual fatigue, gastrointestinal distress, or blood pressure changes, see your physician rather than attributing these to dietary factors alone. The information in this video is general in nature and is not a substitute for personalized medical advice. Now, what does the evidence support as the constructive replacement for each of these habits? For fried food, a dry oven or air fryer at moderate temperature eliminates additional oil oxidation. For leafy greens, cooking only what is needed at each meal removes the nitrosamine risk entirely. For rice, the 1-hour to refrigerator rule and 24-hour consumption window significantly reduce Bacillus cereus toxin accumulation. For chicken, oven reheating with foil or cold consumption eliminates the cold zone problem. For potatoes, cold consumption preserves resistant starch and eliminates compounded acrylamide exposure. I want to tell you about a second patient, a woman I will call Helene. 66 years old, maintained a weight that most would call healthy, had never smoked, walked regularly, and was genuinely confused about why her inflammatory markers were persistently elevated and her blood pressure was increasingly difficult to manage on medication. When we reviewed her daily habits in detail over 2 appointments, the pattern was consistent: reheated vegetable oil cooked food at lunch several days per week, microwave chicken from batch cooking 3 to 4 times per week, cooked spinach reheated each morning. We changed these 5 habits and nothing else. 12 weeks later, her high-sensitivity C-reactive protein had dropped by 31%, her morning blood pressure readings were the most stable they had been in 2 years, her physician reduced one of her blood pressure medications at her next review, nothing else had changed in her routine. Here is exactly what to do. Step 1. Starting this week, identify which of the 5 foods you currently reheat regularly. Be honest with yourself about frequency. Step 2. Implement the replacement habit for each one: oven for fried food, cold or fresh cooked for greens, 1-hour refrigeration rule and 24-hour window for rice, oven with foil for chicken, cold preparation for potatoes. Step 3. At your next physician appointment, ask to have your high-sensitivity C-reactive protein measured if it has not been tested recently. This single marker gives you an objective baseline of your current inflammatory state. Step 4. Ask your physician whether any of your current gastrointestinal or cardiovascular symptoms might have a dietary inflammatory component worth investigating further. Step 5. Request a repeat inflammatory marker measurement in 12 weeks after implementing the changes, so that you have objective data to evaluate whether your body is responding. One important clarification before we close: the 5 foods discussed here represent specific patterns of preparation that the evidence associates with increased inflammatory load, particularly after 60. This is not a general argument against fried food, rice, chicken, leafy greens, or potatoes as foods. These are all legitimate parts of a healthy diet when prepared and handled appropriately. The concern is specific to reheating patterns and their chemical and microbial consequences in an aging body with a reduced capacity to neutralize the resulting compounds. Additionally, the mechanisms described here contribute to risk over time. They do not produce immediate or dramatic Effects from any single meal. Adults who reheat these foods occasionally and in safe conditions face a meaningfully different risk profile than those who do so daily, as